Welcome, everyone, to the live panel of Road to Survival Amidst the Crisis. We have with us Brenda Meller, Scott Douglas Clary, and Andrea Jones, who are joining us tonight. Brenda Meller is a LinkedIn expert, helping businesses engage with their potential target audience via LinkedIn, of course, and other social media platforms as well. And I'm gonna give the floor to Brenda now, and we're gonna ask certain questions, and she'll answer them to the best of her expertise. So welcome, Brenda.
Thank you so much for having me here today. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you, and welcome to everyone who's watching.
Good. So Brenda, I wanted to start with asking, since you're a LinkedIn expert, and right now we do know how the world is going on, and trade shows and events and networking events have been canceled so far. And B2B businesses normally rely on those networking events and trade shows to build customer relationships. So how do you suggest, in your opinion, can one still manage to build a reliable relationship online?
Excellent question. So I'm going to give you guys a tip right off the bat. This is something you can do in every single virtual event that you're attending right now. And that is to drop your LinkedIn URL in the chat. Make sure that you're messaging it to all panelists and attendees, and invite people to connect with you on LinkedIn. I mean, we are in a space now where everything has really shifted to online virtual events, Zoom calls. I don't know about you guys, but every time I join a Zoom session, I'm always looking at who are the attendees. I'm looking them up on LinkedIn. I'm sending them an invitation, and I'm referencing, we were both on the SocialPilot webinar today. So there's actually a huge opportunity for you to reach more people than you would at a trade show. And what I mean by that is, from the convenience of my desktop, I can drop my URL in the LinkedIn chat right now. And I'm looking right now at the participant list. There's 25 people. I think about how many people can I connect with at an event if I go to a trade show. Well, if I'm collecting business cards or attendee registration emails, that's one way. But if I'm walking around and networking, I'm really limited to how many conversations I can have with people. And those might be longer conversations, so maybe I'm not connecting with as many. So when you're in a situation that we're in right now, and the trade shows and the live networking events have canceled, first thing is, anytime you join one of these sessions, drop your URL below and just invite people. Hey, connect with me on LinkedIn. The people that are active on the platform will reach out to you, hopefully include a personal note. If you go to my profile, you're going to notice I'm one of the individuals who has the follow button as the default. The little workaround, you guys ready for this? The little workaround is go to the more button and then click on the drop down, and there should be an option to personalize an invitation or to connect. Okay, so that's the workaround on that. So that's how we can build those relationships online. Including a personal message is getting that conversation started, and then be prepared with what your follow-up is. If I were to connect with Scott, for example, I would send him an invitation, and immediately after he accepts that invitation, I would say, thanks, Scott, for accepting my invitation. Let me know if you ever have any LinkedIn strategy questions. And that's it. And now I'm starting to build that dialogue with new connections like Scott.
That's great. Yeah, I think that's one of the really nice strategies that you've said, that even if certain people have the follow button as their default, they can just go to more and connect, send in a personalized connection request, and that's how they can start building relations. So my next question is, how have you pivoted your strategies to retain customers?
Excellent question. So for me, primarily what I do is I help people and businesses unlock the power of LinkedIn. And I do that with individual coaching, which, before COVID, I was doing this in person, but I was working with some clients online through Zoom. I was also doing team training where I would go out to events, and then I was speaking at conferences and events. So that has kind of paused. I'm not going to say dried up, because I think it will return, but those activities have paused. The individual coaching is continuing. But I'm also kind of figuring out, okay, how can I keep myself visible during this time? How can I keep myself active and out there? And then also, there's a lot of things that are happening in the world where, people are being furloughed and laid off and losing their jobs. And Some, hopefully will return, but others won't, and they're going to start that process of job searching. So how can I use my gifts and talents to help others during this time? So what I've done is I've launched a LinkedIn for Job Seekers webinar series. I'll drop the link in the chat below. It's free. So every week I offer a LinkedIn webinar for job seekers. So that's one thing I'm doing, kind of figuring out, okay, how can I keep myself visible? But perhaps even more importantly, how can I help others during this time? And what are the things that people need that I am uniquely qualified to help them with? That's one thing. And the other thing I'm doing is I have access to LinkedIn Live through the platform. And what I'm trying to do is book as many LinkedIn Live interviews as I can with people from my network. I'll go live on LinkedIn about once a day. And the point of those interviews is to inspire, educate, or inform. It's not a sales pitch. So I'm always trying to pick people who are very charismatic, who have great stories to tell, who have great insights to share. And I'm shining the spotlight on them. By doing so, I'm building social media karma, which I'm a big believer in the universe. What goes around comes around. I'm going to put it out there. I know that will come back to me. So trying to figure out, how to pivot yourself, if the opportunities aren't out there, create opportunities for yourself by giving back and by figuring out where you are uniquely positioned to help others in the marketplace.
That's great. So as mentioned in your LinkedIn bio, actually, that you've conquered a similar recession back in 2008. Right. So what advice would you give people who are being fearful about the times ahead because they've not faced such a situation beforehand?
Right, and it can be very challenging. And back in 2008, I was fully employed at the time, but I hit kind of the proverbial glass ceiling, if you will, and I was ready to make a move. But there were hundreds and then thousands and tens of thousands of people in the market, and those were my competition. Those were people who were job searching, and I didn't have the time to dedicate to job searching for 40, 60, 80 hours a week because I had a husband, a small child, and a long commute. So I stepped up my efforts on LinkedIn. I just started becoming more visible on the platform. One day I discovered a job that was out there and I figured out who the hiring manager was and I made a direct connection to him and I got a conversation started with him. So, right now, if you are job searching, if you're in career transition, don't stop looking. You have to keep looking in these times, but think about approaching it a little bit more creatively, leveraging your network, and I like to say avoid that black hole of a job search. You know what I'm talking about? Like you apply job upon job upon job. If you guys hate the black hole, let me know in comments because I hate the black hole too. So avoid that by surrounding yourself and with networking with other job seekers, by connecting to as many people as you can who hold your targeted job title. And I think that increases the chances and opportunities for you to find somebody who's going to refer you to that ideal opportunity.
That's great. Next, we have with us Scott Douglas Clary. He's a B2B coach and a marketeer, helping businesses scale their growth 10x. So welcome, Scott.
Hey, thank you for having me. I appreciate the opportunity to chat.
Great. So the first question that I have for you is, currently businesses are in survival mode, right? They're in wait and watch mode. So how do they reallocate resources from non-essentials to essentials, ensuring that a steady pace of growth is still maintained?
Yeah, sure. So this is a loaded question, and to provide some context, I do a few different things, but my 9 to 5, I manage a team of sales and marketing within a large organization, and I'm responsible for the sales and marketing of certain software products within the organization, Grass Valley. So obviously, coronavirus has impacted us. We've had to sort of re-understand how we're going to engage with customers, how we're going to market. Fortunately, the product that we sell is still very relevant, but I understand that for a lot of people, they're dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of struggles. Perhaps your business is having a hard time connecting with clients. Perhaps your clients they're having a tough time, closing deals and maintaining their revenue. So how to allocate resources. I wrote down a couple points. I think from my point of view, I want to speak about sales and marketing. I think that's relevant for most people. So to allocate resources, I think you have to focus on what you can control, and you have to focus on, and you have to also maintain you have to maintain a status quo so that you don't start cannibalizing your own business. So what do I mean by that? A lot of people see sales as something that costs the business a lot of money. But for us, sales has essentially broken down our existing customer set into two camps to make sure that we can maintain our sales and maintain our relationships. So we're just revisiting our strategy, and the two camps that our sales are currently focused on. The first camp are customers that can buy still from us, and that's regular business as usual sales approach or sales strategy. And the second camp is almost like a customer success or maintaining the relationships with these people during a time when their businesses may not be doing as well. So we didn't have to let any sales go. We didn't have to stop our sales efforts. We really just refocused what people were doing, understanding what the customer was experiencing. So that's for sales, that's the first thing I would suggest. The second you start letting go of resources and not understanding how you can make those resources work within the context of your own business and your own reality, because obviously, depending on the industry, depending on so many variables, our reality differs. But if you can find a way to maintain and, quote unquote, ride out the storm, then that will put your business on top. So there are ways, like I just mentioned, where sales, some of them are focused on selling to viable customers. Some of them are focused on retention and customer success. So that's one strategy for sales. Now for marketing, I would say in terms of reallocating resources, we are definitely putting more energy online. So one of the largest conferences that we had, I work in broadcast media, and there's two very large conferences, one of them being IBC in Las Vegas. And that was obviously canceled with all the other conferences. So a lot of our marketing resources and energy have now focused on online webinars, social media, basically anything, meeting the customers where they're at, understanding the current reality, and just focusing on what's relevant to them now, which is obviously maintaining their business, keeping their business running as per usual, and where are they consuming their content, and where are they consuming their information, and where are they looking for trusted resources. Well, now it's all online. So if you want to look at the marketing resources, you can look at social media, you can look at paid advertisement, you can look at acting as a thought leader for webinars, these types of things, podcasts, anything that's relevant to what your customer is experiencing. Now, the last point I want to make about sort of reallocating resources is to expect that everyone in the company has been unprepared for this. I think we can say that's fair. So everyone is taking on some extra duties that perhaps they weren't really maybe built into the job description day one. And I think that's just a reality. I think we have to understand the landscape is not expected. So allocating resources, it's really just about having everyone on the same team, everyone understanding that what we're going through is not normal. So if you have certain executives, or even, if you have certain individuals on your team that are doing things that are slightly outside their current job description, the way they were hired on, we're all in this to win at the end of the day, and we're just trying to make things work. So get that culture, get that teamwork, get that, I don't know the best way to put it, but just like that alignment across your whole organization that we're all in this. We want to maintain business operations. We don't want to downsize. We don't want to furlough. We don't want to lay off. So we're all going to have to make some adjustments. So I would say sell to who you can sell to, and then maintain relationships with who you can't. Market where your customers are at, and then everyone just sort of has to play ball. And that's really the best way that I found that we can sort of adjust to the business environment that we're in right now.
I think those are really great points that you've made, I'm sure. The other question that I had is that you might have interviewed many mentors as a part of your Success Story podcast. Are there any specific qualities that you've observed across the table that have made them so successful?
Yes, definitely. So again, a little bit of context. I also run a podcast where I interview incredible people. And it's a lot of fun, a lot of lessons learned. There's some entrepreneurs, there's some executives, there's some people that have just been very successful in whatever category of life they've chosen to, go down that path. So a lot of the things that I pull out of these people to sort of highlight what drives success, regardless of whether or not you're starting your own business, or you could be somebody who's, very passionate about succeeding in a career within a company. It doesn't really matter, but there's principles that drive success across all of these individuals. So one that I really like to focus on is curiosity. Something that I found both in myself and other people that have been successful in whatever they're doing, in entrepreneurs, definitely is the willingness to go and learn and just discover and understand new things. I think that that's probably one of the best traits that you can have as somebody who just wants to be better in whatever you're doing in life. Because if you aren't curious, you're not going to have that, you know, that internal intrinsic motivation to go learn new things. So curiosity is a big one. Passion, you know, we always hear about passion, but if you are going to commit to doing anything and you want to get ahead of where you're at currently, passion is important, because whatever you're doing, building a business, working in a job that you're learning a new skill, whatever, if you're not passionate about it, you're going to get burnt out, because it takes X amount of hours. I think it's like 10,000 hours to get like climatized and successful at whatever you're doing. And you're I guess the glory, or the I guess, what's the best way to put it? A lot of the niceties and the enthusiasm, if you don't have that passion, it dries up after a while. It's hard to just do something just for the money, for example. If you're going to be an entrepreneur and you're starting a business, it better be something that you're passionate about, so that you can maintain yourself and you can maintain your interest in it through all the times when it's tough, when you're struggling, all the down points, so that in the end you can sort of come out on top. So passion's super important. And I'll just do, I'll do one more. This one I liked a lot. Saying yes, but also saying no. So that's confusing. What does that mean? So saying yes means that you're always saying yes to opportunities. You're always saying yes. If somebody asks you, can you do this? Do you want to do this? For example, maybe there's opportunities for a lot of people here to jump on webinars for the first time, speak about something that they're passionate about, regardless of whether or not you're an entrepreneur or within a company. Just say yes and go do it. But at the same time, a successful entrepreneur has to say no, and not saying no to opportunity, but saying no to distraction. So being hyper-focused on that end goal or that North Star metric, whatever it is. So I would say yes to opportunity, but really be hyper-focused and say no to things that are distracting you from what your end goal is, what your final result, whatever you want that to be. So know what that is and sort of drive to it. So those would be three really good takeaways. So curiosity, saying yes to every opportunity, but saying no to distraction, and then definitely passion, so you can persevere.
Yeah, those are really great qualities as well, in my opinion too. So do you think that the 10x growth that is sort of your go-to strategy for most businesses, is it viable for B2B businesses right now, with supply chains being broken down? There are nationwide lockdowns happening now. Now things have started opening up slowly, but people are still not positive or keen on sending their kids back to school, or going to restaurants to have dinner or something like that. So do you think growth right now for certain businesses is still a viable option?
So first, let's talk about 10x. So what does 10x mean? So 10x can mean, in my mind, two things. 10x can be literally increasing your business by a factor of 10. Or the way that I like to interpret it is truly just achieving massive success in whatever you're striving to do. And that may be cheating a little bit, but I firmly do believe that I like the way to phrase it. I like that it has a little bit of like a shock factor, because you mentioned, do you 10x a business? Well, I don't think that if you're going through hard times, if your revenue's down, if your supply chain is broken, the current environment is conducive to striving to achieve 10x revenue. We're not trying to achieve unicorn status during one of the toughest financial times in history. That's not really, it could be for some people. For example, I'm sure Zoom is doing incredible and Netflix is doing incredible, but that's not the reality for most businesses. So 10x so increase your business by a factor of 10 may not be a smart way to look at it. Now, 10x from where you're at today to a successful game plan, if you need to pivot your strategy, if you need to pivot your entire marketing playbook, if you need to change even the products you sell or how you sell them, and you are taking your business down an entirely new path for the first time because you're forced to, maybe 10x isn't the right word, but achieving massive success during a time when a lot of people are giving up is definitely viable. Now, you have to be realistic about what success is. And success could be maintaining your top line revenue. Success could be not laying off any staff. Success could be surviving another year if you only have so much funding and so much runway. So determine what your success is, but be strategic and understand that there usually is a way to achieve that success, even in dark times, and then go for that and be very be very driven and be very purposeful about where you're going. And I know maybe people listen to this and they're like, well, listen, what happens if you're losing revenue? There have been lots of examples, and I don't know off the top of my head, but I can find some of CEOs that have managed to effectively, cut certain salaries, take slight portions off executive salaries, redistribute the wealth around the company, keep people on board, obviously rejig job descriptions, for example. So there's ways to achieve massive success during a pandemic against what's going on with everyone else. You just have to make sure that you're purposeful and you don't take shortcuts and you don't have knee-jerk reactions to what's going on. And I think that in my mind, that would be a 10x or rather just a massive win for anybody who's struggling right now.
Well, that's great to hear from your end. Yeah. The other speaker that we have now with us is Andrea Jones. You might know her from her company called Online Drea. She's a social media expert and helps coach businesses power through their social media strategies. So welcome aboard, Andrea.
Hi, thank you for having me.
My first question to you is, now more than ever before, companies are looking to enhance engagement with their potential customers, being socially distant from them. So what are you currently doing to maintain higher engagement levels with your clients?
Yes, and you said it perfectly in the question, which is we are socially distant physically from our clients, but that doesn't mean we have to be distant emotionally or create distance in the relationships that we have with our clients. So there are a few things that we are doing with some of our clients that are interesting. I'll give one example. One of our clients has an at-home hair removal device. And so, as you know, all the spas are closed. And so there's a lot of men and women out there who need this product. They've been in business for 25 years. And, we've had regular kind of growth over the years. But in April, we did a very fast pivot of our messaging on social media to specifically speak to what people are going through. And actually we started in May leading into April because that's when, some of the closures started happening and that sort of thing. And the interesting thing was the response from the audiences on social media. Some of the executives at the company were unsure of taking advantage, so to speak, of the current situation and continuing to market the product. But we move forward anyways because we found that as long as we are connecting with the audience where they are now, then we can continue to sell. And this is a very specific example because it's definitely something that a lot of people are eager to purchase right now. But I think the underlying theme is that we connected with our audience where they are now, what they're going through now emotionally, what their bodies are going through now. We did this whole campaign about, doing your at-home hair removal while watching Netflix, because that's what everyone was doing. And so it was just like being a human and talking to people like humans worked really well in that instance. Some of the other things we've done to maintain engagement levels are just acknowledging that, hey, we're all here, we're together, even though there are closures. So a few of our live events got canceled, those types of companies. So instead of just posting one time and saying, hey, this is canceled, here's where we are, we kept checking in with those audiences. How are you feeling? What are you going through? What's your community like? We're here, we're in this together. And I think keeping those touch points really helps showcase a company with that human element, which is what we're all looking for, especially as like bigger companies, and bringing people in. I will say across the board, we did see some decreases in engagement in some places. So things like some of our clients have podcasts that they saw a decrease in listenership. But despite those decreases in overall numbers, the quality of the listeners and the quality of the people who are engaging on social media increased. So even though maybe our post didn't get as many comments, we felt like those comments actually went in deeper. Or the people who did listen to those episodes, one of our clients is a therapist for parents of teenagers, specifically teenagers who are, a bit more of a handful. And so he released podcast episodes about staying home with your teenagers right now, all day, every day, which is a total new experience for a lot of parents right now. And even though that particular episode didn't get as many downloads as some episodes in the past, he got so many messages on social media about it because it really resonated with those individuals who did tune in and who did listen to it. So I think, connecting with the audience on a human level and really going in where they are and participating in the experience as they're participating in it is a really great way to continue that engagement.
I think you made quite a few great points. I do agree that I did hear somebody say that right now, if your solution is still viable for the customers or how they're feeling right now, like for Zoom, for example, if they're doing a sales pitch, we would not take it incorrectly, or we wouldn't be offended, more to say, because their solution is working for us right now. So if you have something that people need, it's the need of the hour, then why not make it a sales pitch? You can tone down a bit and be subtle about your message and connect with your audience, but you can still have a sales pitch. My next question is, so you have a lot of marketing courses as a part of the Social Savvy School. How has that helped you reach a larger audience now? Because in lockdown, people are saying that, you need to upskill a bit and you can do some things now more than ever before because you've got time.
Yeah. So one of the first things we did was, so there's like two sides of my business. There's the agency side where we're actually doing the work for our clients. And then there's it's actually Savvy Social School, but Social Savvy School, Savvy Social School. So we're teaching people how to do the work themselves as well. So we've had to pivot very quickly on the agency side. We've got 17 clients right now. Typically they're launching at different times, and typically they're changing their marketing at different times. We had to 180 all of our posts, all of our marketing very quickly to make sure there was no mentioning going out to bars or headed to parks or anything like that in our posts. So because of that, we got the unique experience of trying to figure out how to, like you said, market the business, or at least how to still show up on social media without sounding tone deaf or without just completely not marketing our products at all. So because of that crash course in pivoting, we created a lead magnet. Actually, I can put it in the chat in a minute, where we put together some captions and little snippets that businesses can use to market their business, almost like transitional phrases. You've probably seen a lot of them already online, things like, talking about the current crisis, the pandemic, how things are handling lockdown, quarantine, just kind of transitioning your marketing messages. And so that lead magnet is a PDF. In the marketing space, this is really good. So we're getting it at $1 per lead for Facebook ads. And which, when you're marketing to marketers, that's a very crowded space. So we were very happy with that cost. And then we got a lot of good feedback from businesses, especially local businesses, who didn't know how to post on social media right now, because your current plan just went out the window. It's not working. So that worked really well. And then obviously when folks access that lead magnet, we've got an offer for them to join the school. Now, I like to think of this as an offer and not a pitch, because we're not hard selling them on, you have to join this program. It's more like, hey, if you found this helpful, you may also find this helpful, but no pressure, right? If you want to take it to the next level, get some, we have group coaching, we have courses on Instagram, LinkedIn, we've got done for you posts and captions. We did a whole kind of mini training on the pandemic, and we've got lots more coming for that. So if you need that, you can join the school. If not, this PDF with captions and things could be a really great starting place. So for us, it was making sure that we took the knowledge that we had from having to pivot 17 clients all at once and repackaging it in a way that a lot more people can benefit from what we went through. And so actually that product is doing very well. We have seen a lot of increases in the students who are coming through the program. And because of that, Teachable, so our program's on Teachable, which is a learning program, like a portal, they actually featured one of our courses, and we had over 5,000 students go through that course because we'd worked on it for years, and now just happens to be the time that some people have some extra time to learn some of the things that they maybe have been putting off. So for us, it was a lot of like, we worked hard on this for years, and then we just happened to be in an industry that is booming because of this. And we are seeing that on both sides, both the agency side and the Savvy Social School side. So a lot of our students are now taking the time to figure out Instagram stories, for instance, if they've never explored that, or re-examining their hashtag research, or even have a few students who want to learn how to do TikTok and some of those fun things. So, for us, it's just kind of like we are here and we're ready to help those people who are taking advantage of this time that we're all locked inside.
That's great to hear. The next question that I have for you is, could you share your top 2 pivot strategies that have helped your clients? For example, the client who has an events business has mentioned one in one of your podcast episodes.
Yes. So this client has local events, think of like small chapters all across the US. She really helps, it's called RebelCon. She really helps women in business. And so they've got chapters mostly on the East Coast right now, where women can come together and network. And she was very committed to the live interaction. So nothing virtual. She really wanted to bring people physically together in the same space, which has been a great business model for the past few years. We had a large conference in April that was supposed to be happening, like the big conference of the year. And we had to cancel it at the last minute. So for us, the first pivot was trying to figure out, okay, all of this marketing, the ads, the promotions, we have to replace all of that content. And then the second piece to that was, okay, now what do we do moving forward? So she ended up putting together a virtual event, and she's been doing mini classes every day of the week, kind of like, she calls them coffee hours. So like she'll get experts on, similar to what Brenda was doing on LinkedIn Live with like connecting with people, right? But virtually. And then we're going to have a virtual event in June to replace this one that we were supposed to do in the spring. But this also sparked for her the power of virtual communities. So because she's the founder of her company and she's very extroverted, she just assumed she wouldn't like all of the digital connecting. But because of this current situation that we're all in, she actually found ways to enjoy it and is now considering creating a virtual community for her members. So she'll still, after we are allowed to, she'll still have those in-person meetups and meetings. But to have the virtual home as well, where members can continue to connect with each other in between the meetings, is a layer of her product that she hadn't previously considered. So that was a huge pivot for her to go from, only doing in-person meetups to actually having virtual components on an ongoing basis. So another strategy, let's see, I gave the example of, I'll give the example of one of my clients who's a career coach. So she previously only worked with high-level executives. So people who are maybe getting into like the VPs and the CEOs and the COO positions, like coaching them and training them. So it's a very high-ticket service. And one of the things that she saw is those people were losing their jobs. And so they're pausing her coaching services, or either they just got busy because they're laying off their teams. So they didn't have time to be coached into like a forward momentum in their career when lots of careers are being halted. So what she did in the meantime is she started a podcast. So she previously does Facebook Lives. So we worked together to take those Facebook Live trainings and turn them into podcast episodes as well. This was something she always wanted to do and thought she didn't have time for it. So we figured out how we could collaborate and get that going for her. But then she also created a digital course, which is something that she never thought she would do. In her mind, coaching and consulting has to be one-on-one, has to be high touch. But after taking a look at a lot of her materials that she's been doing for years, she realized there's a lot of running themes that are very applicable to many people in different areas, and then especially to people who maybe have lost their job or they're looking for another job right now. So she's taken that information, put it into a course, and we actually launched it 2 days ago. And so for her, that's a huge pivot to go from coaching high-end executives to having a course that is more accessible for everybody. So I think in both examples, when you're thinking about pivoting, they really focus in on the individuals in the audience, the individuals in your networks and in your communities, because those are the people who are going to inform what that pivot should look like. I think our first instinct sometimes is to just do what we want to do. Okay, we're going to do this because we think it's going to work, or we make a decision because we think in our heads that that's the best decision. But in both examples, they relied on their communities and really tapped into what has already been done before to figure out what those next steps would be. And yeah, I can share the link to that in a moment as well, Mark, if you're interested.
That's great. So now I think we have the floor open for all of our experts, and anybody can share their thoughts on these questions. So my first question to all of you all would be, the engagement levels and the reach levels on social media organically have lessened. I don't know why, because more people are spending more time on social media, but still engagement levels are not there. So if you do run engagement for a page or a group, how are you maintaining those levels of engagement?
I'll jump in here and I'll kind of speak from the perspective of I've experienced managing multiple social media platforms. My expertise is in LinkedIn, so I'll let Andrea speak to kind of the Facebooks and the Instagrams. I'm sure she has a lot of depth and knowledge in those sites. But from the perspective of LinkedIn, I mean, the algorithm's always changing, and I think this applies to every single network. They're always changing. But I kind of think about, I'm a marketer, so I'm always trying to think about who is my ideal target audience and why do they care about what I'm posting? And then on the other side of that is what are the rules of the algorithm and how can I kind of try to understand how those rules are changing? Ultimately, all of these platforms, their goal is to keep people on the site longer and to show more popular performing content more often because that keeps you engaged. I like to call this the trade show effect. So think about if you walk into an event and there's a 10 or 20 vendor tables and everybody's kind of trying to make eye contact with you. And then there's that one table and there's a bunch of people crowded around. They look like they're laughing, having fun. Maybe there's a prize wheel or something going on and you're kind of like, oh, what's going on over there? It's the same thing with social media posts. The ones that start to generate engagement, a little bit of a snowball effect starts and people are drawn to that post. So knowing that, there are some techniques that you can do, one of which is find people who are your brand ambassadors or employees to start the engagement process by liking, commenting on the post, and when they comment, make sure that they do so with 5 or more words. That's really key on LinkedIn to jumpstart the algorithm and get things going. You're never going to game the system and nobody's going to get the playbook to the algorithm, but I think kind of understanding what is human behavior and, when you think about getting that algorithm kind of jump-started by using people who are likely to engage with your content and asking them. I'll do this often. I'll be like, if you guys are on Meller Marketing, make sure you tag me and I will always reply back. So kind of using those techniques of understanding human behavior can help to work across that. You're not gonna be able to break the system and get the engagement up because it's their rules, right? But focusing your content on your ideal target audience is key.
I'll piggyback off of that and just add that right now we're not so focused on maintaining or increasing engagement. We're really focused on nurturing the people who are showing up and who are participating. So oftentimes right now, this is like kind of a weird time. We're all experiencing this for the first time. We've not had a pandemic lockdown like this. So for a lot of us, it's going into our communities and making sure that the people who are showing up are nurtured. So for instance, I mentioned the Savvy Social School and how with those members, we have seen an increase in membership, but what helps is that our current members are showing up because they're getting what they need from that and really showing that we're nurturing them and spending more time with them. So in practicality, what that means is we usually do 2 coaching calls a month. We went up to weekly calls. Even some weeks we had 2 weekly strategy calls with our members, because that's what they needed. They needed someone to talk to, someone who could give them a response back. So I think figuring out how you can basically double your value of your service and really serve the people who are right in front of you. In public social media arenas, we're doing things like more video content, more content where like Brenda mentioned, the algorithm really likes when people are paying attention to your content. So instead of posting more, we're posting less and just focusing on quality, so we can get as many people engaging with those posts as possible so that the algorithm stays happy. But really focusing on the people who are showing up instead of trying so hard to get new people into the community right now.
I had one last point that I come from a sales background, but I obviously am heavily involved in marketing. So the one thing that I focus on for all content is the exact same thing that I tell people that are selling to focus on, which is modify the messaging to lead with empathy and just have an awareness of what's going on right now. And if you don't do that, you're going to lose customers that could have been signing up when they do have budget, or they do come around when this all comes to pass. You know what I mean? So I think that right now, any post you put out, any video you put out, even if you're doing paid advertising, if it's not empathetic and very relevant to what's happening, you're going to burn bridges and you're going to tick a lot of people off. So that's one thing that I focus on for marketing. But also, if you're selling anything to anyone, which marketing really is at the end of the day, it may not be a phone call, but it's still the messaging that you put in and you put out there is very important to focus on.
Very true. So let's just have the expectation versus reality tab right now. We did create campaigns for our clients at the start of 2020. And like Andrea mentioned, and even Brenda touched upon that, they don't work anymore. So have those campaigns or the clients, have they shifted? And if yes, how have you dealt with convincing your clients to adhere to a different strategy or a different marketing objective for this year or this quarter?
A great question. So I think, as marketers, as business owners, as leaders, we always have to be thinking about what is our strategy given the current market conditions, given what's happening in the marketplace, and things are changing all the time. And what you may have had at the start of the year may not be relevant anymore. And there might be opportunities in new areas, and your key product is no longer in demand in the market because of various changes. But I think one strategy is always to think about, kind of doing a SWOT analysis. The strengths and weaknesses are things that you can control within your business. Opportunities and threats are things that exist whether or not you're in business or not. So, kind of identifying what those are. And I don't think any of us had, like Andrea was saying earlier, none of us had pandemic in our threats category before, right? But now we all do, right? And now it's on there, and we have to kind of think about what is going to be the impact of our business for the next 6 months. And then we need to think about the after the pandemic, after things kind of settle down, where does our business land? So, strategies and campaigns that you've come up with at the beginning of the year may no longer be valid, but they also might still be valid, and you might just need to shelf them for a while. And then when the timing is right, to Scott's point, we don't want to be tone deaf. We want to make sure that the messages we're putting out to the market are relevant given the current situation. But when the timing is right, you might dust those campaigns off and maybe tweak and modify the words again, and then you could still put them out into place. But I think you have to kind of be understanding and be, truthful and honest with the situation. You can't just push messages out in the market and keep your fingers crossed. I think you've got to kind of understand the given situation and be able to kind of flex that a little bit.
One of the things that we're doing with our clients is taking this opportunity to really evaluate the humanity of it all. So I think sometimes as marketers, we get a little overzealous. I know I do, with all of the fancy schmancy marketing tools and the newest things. And I just had to convince a client that, like, no, we don't need to be on TikTok right this second. And so it's things like that where this kind of transition is a great opportunity to reassess what our long-term goals are and figure out a way to get there in spite of it all. But because of this, because of where we are, I think leaders are even more important. So that's a conversation I've been having with my clients, is how can you show up as leader? What does that look like? Because a lot of my clients are coaches and consultants and service-based business owners who they have their own micro audiences who are waiting to hear from them. One of my newer clients is a travel agent who just started her business right before this whole thing happened. So for her, she was really stuck on, how do I continue to show up as a travel agent when we can't travel? And it's as simple as acknowledging that what we're doing right now is different, and then providing information that your audience is looking for. So when can we travel? How can we get a refund on our Airbnbs? Who do we call if we need to rebook a flight? People are looking for those answers, and if you can be the person to provide them, then you're putting yourself in as a leader. So creating content that leads to that is key right now. Things like YouTube videos and, right when this happened, there was a bunch of like, how do you work from home kind of content pieces. And basically the people who posted that first got to reap the benefits of that. So as we go through the rest of this pandemic, the next 6 months, the next year, how can you think one step ahead of your audience, what questions they're asking or they're going to ask, and be there providing that content and be the leader that's going to show them how they get to where they're trying to go.
I can add just one more thing, not to be redundant. So those are both really good points. I think from an organizational point of view, everything, yes, you want to meet the clients where they're at. You want to make sure that you're not tone deaf, but you also want to realize that this may be an opportunity to cross off some of the other things that you were putting off, because obviously we're not exceeding, that 3 or 5 or 10% revenue increase year over year. So let's maintain status quo. And you mentioned about reallocating resources. So maybe we start looking at some of those things that have been put off forever and ever and ever. And then that's like now's a really good time to go and tackle those and investigate those, because we know that everything else is sort of at a standstill. Depends on the business, depends on the industry, but that could be an opportunity too.
That's great. I think, yeah. Can we do one more question, because we are running a little short on time. All right, so maybe the last question, that what is one key strategy or messaging that currently people can easily fall back on to create more runway for their business?
I can start. I'll do one. I'd say the number one most important thing for me is to have that human approach. So to make sure that anything you put out into the world, anything you communicate to your customers, anything you communicate to your employees, your peers, your coworkers, it's like transparency, empathetic. You're aware of what's going on. You're human, and that's who wins. Like, leaders who aren't real. Yeah, maybe your employees are hard pressed to find a new job, but the second they realize that you're not being honest with them about business goals, you said things were good this week, but they got laid off next week, peers talk, you're not going to be a place where they're going to ever want to work again. And that's going to get around. If you're not authentic with your marketing messaging, if you're pushing stuff the same way you're pushing it, if you're doing like an automated campaign that has a relevant messaging and it's insensitive to what's going on right now, even if the customer is not buying now, they've blacklisted you forever. Just because you're not being authentic. So I'd say just be human, be authentic, and be careful about how you communicate. It's the most important to be as human as possible right now. That's my one thing.
I would add to that and say, for the human element, I know there's probably a mixture of people watching this right now, whether you're in a larger company or you're kind of a solopreneur freelancer. If you could have a voice for that human element, I think that could be very helpful. So even some of the larger companies that we're working with have a person who's like the voice of the podcast or the face you're seeing on YouTube. And I think having that person helps people connect. And so if you can assign that to someone within your company, or if you're that person, I think that takes that human element to a whole new level.
So I'm gonna share my advice with a story, and I don't know if you're religious or not, but I don't know the exact kind of realm of the story, but there's a guy who's in a house and there's a flood that's happening, and he says to God, "Please save me." And day 2, a boat comes by, and the person says, "Hey, let's rescue and get you out of here." And the guy says, "No, God's gonna save me. God's gonna save me." And the next day, he's up to his roof, and the water keeps rising, and another boat comes by, and he says, "Let's get out of here." And the guy's like, no, God will save me. And then the next day, the water goes over the roof of the house, and the guy drowns, and he goes up to heaven, and he says to God, "Why didn't you save me?" And God says, "What do you think the boats were for?" So for all of us, right now, pay attention to the opportunities and talk to your employees, talk to your team members. Where are there opportunities for your business? For me, I've had to flex pretty quickly and move from in-person to online and on-demand and webinars and offering different things, because you know why? Because I've been listening. I've been listening to the boats that are coming around me, and people are saying, "Hey, can you do a webinar? Can you do an online course?" I'm paying attention. And in the past, I might have said no, because those aren't a large revenue source for me, but now I have to kind of pay attention to the boats that are coming. So, when you come across webinars like the SocialPilot event, and you think there might be something in there that can help your business, register for those webinars and ask your employees, what are you hearing? What are people asking us for? It might not be in your traditional mix of products and services, but there may be opportunities that you just need to be open and be receptive to those.
That's great. We actually don't have enough time for an AMA session, but if somebody from the audience does have questions, you can leave it in the chat and I'll send it across to our panelists. Or they've also shared their social media details, so you can connect with them over there and ask them directly. The last thing that I want to leave all of y'all with is, besides the tons of value that our panelists have provided, we at SocialPilot are doing our bit by helping business owners and social media managers get social media scheduling at a very affordable cost, which is $1 per month over the next 2 months. So you can go to this website, which is www.socialpilot.co/we want to help, and you can get in all the details of the offer over there. And I would just like to thank all our panelists for taking time out and joining us for this webinar and sharing their beautiful insights. And as mentioned in the chat itself, there is a second part to this panel discussion with new panelists. So if you'd like to join, you can register for the link from here. Thank you so much.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys. Bye now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.